Yeah, no, so, I've been on this journey since leaving Health-Ade of just like, what is that next chapter for me defined by? And putting myself out there and developing a personal brand is really like hard because I never thought about that really. And everything was in sacrifice for the business. And so just putting myself out there has been like I press the button and I kind of close my eyes. I'm like, okay, well, here it is now. And so, like, I applaud you and everyone else who's like really put themselves out there because it takes a lot of vulnerability and courage. So yeah, that's what I'm doing is I chart the next steps in my
Well, that's just so exciting, and I think it's, like, so, like, permission giving for so many people who are gonna be listening to this because you have created, like, a company that sold for hundreds of millions of dollars, you like, all of these things, and you created this brand that was so big, and everyone probably views you as like, "Oh, well, this woman's got everything on lock. She knows how to do the personal brand. She knows social media. Why would she ever be nervous?" And I think that's so nice just to hear that, like, yes, you had success in this one pocket, but you're borrowing probably so much of the confidence that you built in that one area, but this is new.
It's new. I know. And it's so funny because in the last 2 weeks, I was at a crossroads because I had a decision to make around going into something I already knew, like going in as a hired CEO for a CPG company, super established. It's what I would know, or saying no to that and doing something like completely new. And it was hard because, you fall back on what you know. And I said no to that opportunity in efforts to just chart a whole new path. And it's uncomfortable, but I love that learning and it's challenging and it's a puzzle, but I love that. And so I don't want to shy away from that. And that's where you grow.
Yeah, exactly, and it's so wonderful. I feel I like, you're a person of faith, right?
I mean, I grew up Catholic and
Okay.
I'd say I'm spiritual and I am
Yes.
faith-based, but I'm not the best practicing person, let's say.
Okay, well, the whole thing about me is, like, I just feel like once you tell God, "Okay, like, I'm so serious, like, I am willing to walk away from this, like, super safe position, like, I trust, God, source, universe, doorknob, whatever you wanna call it," but, like, that's where I feel like always the blessings come after that because it's so like, most people operate in the safety of, like, "Okay, this feels good, this feels normal, this is, like, gonna" we know what this looks like, but that soul's calling to do something so different is like so exhilarating and so exciting and so terrifying. But I think if you do that, there's so much beautiful things that will come from the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited about that and I'm hopeful about that too.
For sure.
So, yeah, I'm excited to just catch up with you too and see how I can, we can just chat on all things what your focus is on.
Well, yeah, no, I love this, but like how Vanessa and I'll let you introduce yourself in a second, but like how Vanessa and I met, well, like we were connected through, I think, a YPO group when I was hosting a mastermind in Los Angeles. Like, I don't know if it was like 2018 or 2019, but it was
Yeah.
forever ago. And so grateful at the time. I was in the beginning stages of doing what I'm still doing, obviously, but it was like so amazing for you to come and share your story with the girls who were there. Like so many of those girls I'm still in contact with today. And just you being a part of it was like such a blessing to me at the time. And I'm just so grateful that you said yes to do this podcast because your story is so incredible. And so I'd love for you to introduce yourself and we can kind of go into your journey and how you got here today doing all these new, fun, scary things.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I met you and I was at your mastermind,
Yeah.
I was still knee deep in Health Aid. So I'm the co-founder of Health-Ade Kombucha. We started in 2012. Me, my best friend, and her husband, and we came to market with this idea that we were going to build a beverage that was really going to speak to gut health, and that was through kombucha. We started selling in the farmers market here in LA, and one farmers market turned to many, and that turned to wholesale delivery, and that turned to nationwide distribution, where fast forward to 2021 and you could find us in around 50,000 doors around the United States, all channels of trade, so natural accounts, conventional accounts, Target, Walmart, etc. We were probably doing close to $300 million in retail sales. That's when our private equity partners bought us, and then I stayed on for a couple of years and I just left. And now I find myself in this new chapter. I'm about to turn 40. I'm about to start a couple new businesses. And it's hard and it's scary lots of imposter syndrome, even though, as you mentioned, like I started a business, but I still have insecurities about all that. And so that's where I am now. And since I saw you, I actually have had 2 kids, got married, like life has happened. And so that was a really interesting part of all this too, is like how kids have really shaped my view and perspective as a leader and the model I want to be.
Yeah, when I was reading your intake form, obviously, like, I feel like I know you just a pinch. I've followed you for a while, but it was, like, really cool to see that a big portion or your big passion now is really helping founders, both personally and professionally, and creating a life that isn't all about just the grind. When you guys were building Health Aid, and obviously, like, it was so long ago, I don't remember every step of the journey, but when you came and talked to us, but, like, was it 99% just the grind the whole entire time?
Oh, yeah. It was like 99.9% grind, and I think it was maybe 2019 when I went to your event that I saw that there's, like, all these women that look so fresh and beautiful, and I'm like, "Wow, how do I get there?" That I'm like, "There must be another way," but, it was a grind, like, gritty. We were bootstrapped in the beginning. We were working farmers markets where it was, I mean, if you work at farmers market, it's manual labor. And we were making the kombucha all of ourselves. So it was physical production every day. And it's just the grind. The grind as you grow just gets more and bigger and more like everything just gets bigger. And then there's like the mental burden of everything. I don't think that's talked about is you go through adrenal fatigue, you go through like waking up multiple times in the night because you just you feel like the other shoe's going to drop. So even when you're not physically grinding, you're mentally grinding.
Yeah, for sure. On the other side of it now, a couple years removed and exited, do you feel, and like I feel like this is a question I've had a few founders who have sold their companies for well as has done well with it as well. And I've asked this question before. On the other side of it, do you now think that it was quote unquote worth it?
It was worth it, 100%. Like I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world. And I wouldn't actually do anything differently because I definitely feel like every part of that journey, as like painful and like blood, sweat, tears, like as it took, it was part of the process. I'm a lot smarter in terms of what I would do, so I wouldn't make those same decisions moving forward. But it was worth it on so many levels. A personal development level, relationships, learning an industry and a whole like category and the how and the execution. Like it was all worth it. So I wouldn't trade that for the world.
I love that you said that because I think sometimes people can see like the final product. Like they'll see you now and we hear you like talking about balance and all the things, but I actually think that like, my husband's very successful in building his business and like I've seen 20 something years of like never turning his cell phone off, and, like, there's never been one day, and I think he's lied to me that he said he turned off his cell phone the whole time on our wedding day, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen the ins and outs of it, and I think that, yes, there's ways that you can kind of take care of yourself, but I also love the fact that I hear from so many people on this podcast and people that I've met along the journey that people say, like, it is hard and you do have to work hard because I don't believe in my soul that you can create a company that was as successful as yours by, the 4-hour work week and all of the kind of stuff that we're sold that it's supposed to be easier. And one of the reasons why it bothers me so much is because it makes so many people feel like they're doing it wrong and they're failing and everyone else has it figured out and they don't have it figured out. And to me, that's like the worst thing you can do to yourself is like always be telling yourself you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I grew up very much like that, like you're doing it wrong. And it was through like a lot of therapy recently, a lot of like ways to heal that trauma to say like there's no way that you can do it wrong. It's like the way that you're doing it is what the way it was meant to be. But yeah, growing up and feeling like you're in it, and I constantly felt like I was doing it wrong, but there was no other way that I felt like it could be done, you know? So I'm on the other side, so and everyone's a lot like grass is always greener. It's like, "Oh, you could do this or you could do that." But once you're in it, you can't see that. Like you can't see like what's above you or around. You can only see what's in front of you and you just got to go forward.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you've actually been, like, starting to heal yourself and your journey and all of the things. Like, that's the shit that I've been preaching for so long. I'm like, any idiot on the planet who tells you you can do business and personal separate is lying through their teeth. It is so intertwined and it matters so heavily if you want to actually enjoy the experience. And that's what I loved about your intake form. You're like now so passionate about like the personal and the professional.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did have an executive coach throughout Health Aid, but very superficially trying to
Yeah.
heal me, like enough to like cover it with a band-aid and like move forward, right? And like get the feelings like dealt with so that I can move forward. But as I left, I mean, there were so many questions for me. I was recently, just had a baby. And so postpartum anxiety, identity issues after leaving the business, this constant struggle and conflict between achievement and like being like okay in the process, and then more recently like ego and relevancy, like those are all issues that if you don't like tackle and like understand the root cause, it just eats away at you. And so it does become this more like regular practice to do so that you can live a blended life and feel happy where you are.
I think it's so amazing too that you're talking about it not only as a female, not only as like a super high achiever, but and tell me if this feels true, but like in the Asian culture, especially, like the high achieving is like pinnacle. And I kind of experienced this when I was in golf. Like there was a lot of Asians in the golf, and the expectation from for them versus others was very much different. And I think that that should like it should be voiced. And I'm sure you're like now speaking so much to that demographic.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it is on a different level. Like even if it's not spoken, that like the achievement, it's embedded, right? There's like memes like, oh, you got an A minus, like one on it, all that stuff. And I kind of felt like that when I was growing up. However, like my dad was like not great at school, but he did okay and like all that stuff. And I think more than anything, you become ingrained within this cultural expectation that as a personal desire, like you just want to achieve. Even if someone externally is not putting out that bar for you, like you just want to achieve. And so for me, if I'm not working toward a goal or achievement, I feel lost. And I felt so weird to not be a high performer like in this space right now. And so no, I really had to like overcome that. And then I also had to really overcome this idea that worth and myself, like just my security, who I am, my safety is not directly tied to the outcomes of a business valuation or what my job title, like all of those things. So yeah, that took a lot of therapy and still does, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that because I mean, obviously we don't know each other that well, but I've been sharing that on this podcast for so many years because like the day that I really left golf and I changed my social media handle from Golf Christina to Be Christina was like literally like one of the hardest moments of my life because my identity was so wrapped up in how I looked, how I played, and how much money I was making. And I didn't know who I was outside of that, and I felt like I didn't have a purpose, and, like, that's one of the main reasons why I got so heavily into self-development, personal development, and then obviously it's turned a little like, it's a little bit pivoted, but it's the same underlying aspects is just because there's so many people, whether it be an athlete or a person who's owned a business or a parent or whatever it is, it's like there's so many ties that become so blurred, and it's so hard, and very few people talk about it. Until you talk about it, you just feel like you're so alone.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's funny that you bring up golf because part of the last year and a half, like in efforts to help do something different and learn a new skill and have an outlet, I actually took up different things like art, and golf is one of them. And I even found myself it's so technical and
Yeah.
there's so like many parts to it. It's so frustrating. I felt myself wanting to achieve the not like the farthest drive, but just like getting it all right. Felt started to feel like, "Oh, man, maybe I should take a break from this because I feel like I'm getting so wrapped up in the achievement of, like, this one stroke that maybe it's not for me at the moment."
Yeah. If you're still working through those things, golf is like the freaking hardest thing you could have picked.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I took a break. I took a break.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, like, you said no to this corporate job that's going back to this consumer packaged products business, taking that role. You decided that you're going to stay in the lane of supporting founders and coaching founders. What does that look like for you? Or what do you obviously talk about, you just said that you're very goal oriented, you're very fixated on like what is the thing. So what does that look like for Vanessa right now?
Yeah. So, one is, well, I heard this quote, like, your best position is serve the person you once were. And it really stuck with me, because I really feel like there's women in transition everywhere, and I was that person, am this person, and whether it be you're a corporate girly and you want to leave your job to do your side hustle as your main hustle, founder world is nothing but transition. Or if you're like a newer mom like myself in this like flux of transition from like who you were to who you are now, I found that there is this community of women like seeking community, really like a place that's intimate, safe. And there's many places I think on the internet for that, which are awesome. I really tried to go down that route of and you've probably seen some of the things I've posted, but I what I realized, and I don't think I'm going to stop posting online, but I thought my calling was going to be, okay, let me be an advisor and a coach, set up a mastermind, and do that whole thing. In the last couple weeks, I put on a retreat for founders through Gold House. I did like an art therapy thing with a couple other founders. What I realized is I love deeply personal connection. I love the personal in real life connection, similar to like that mastermind that you had that was live a few years
Yeah.
ago. Like I love stuff like that. It was small, it was intimate. And to me, I need just take the work out of it. I need something to look forward to in my own life. Like I need something that's a fulfilling, rich experience to feel like I am living. And that balances out nicely to the to-dos of, let's say, operating a business, starting the new businesses that I'm venturing into. And I think that there's a community of women who also really want something like that, that are like-minded in what they're pursuing. And so that's like you're basically the first person I'm talking to about this. So the gears aren't even put together yet, but that's where my heart is. Like, how do I create these in real life experiences that are intimate, safe for women, similar life stages, similar transitions, to explore like a mental reset, whether it be art therapy or whether it be horse therapy or whether it just be like a great mastermind kind of like puzzle, like challenging question, like how do we tackle this problem. So I'm putting the gears together for something like that, so you're catching me at a time where it's like very, very new and very pivoted from my original thought, but that's where my heart is.
I'm so grateful and thankful that you're saying that. So, like, this has nothing to do with like selling it or anything because it'll already be done by the time that this podcast comes out. But right now, like as we record this at the end of August, I have one more spot left for a event that I'm co-hosting with one of my clients in Vancouver, Canada. And you spoke at one of my masterminds in California. I think at the time there was like 10 women at that. And that's just like such a beautiful number. I've done it up to 20. I've done it as small as 6, but like that 10 to 20, 10 to 15, type of thing. Depending on the size of the house, you can get enough
Yeah.
women. But it is like literally one of the most life-changing experiences for every single person who's ever attended. I probably had over the years, maybe 60 people total come to different retreats that I put on all across, the US and all over. And I'll tell you, it is one of the most transformational things. And I pray to God that you have a community of women who are going to take you up on this. And so if you are a woman who's listening to this and Vanessa's going to put one of these things together and you're a fan of hers and you know her and you know what she stands for and what she's been through and her lessons and all the things, please come because I will tell you the hardest thing I've ever had to sell is a retreat. Women
Mhm.
find, and this is like, I'm a woman, I can say this. Women find every excuse under the sun, whether it's their family, whether it's time, whether it's money. They feel selfish doing it. And you're a mom, I'm not. But I will tell you, it is the least selfish thing that you can do is make time and allocate this for yourself because it will transform your life. And it literally doesn't even matter if you do horseback riding or painting or hot seats like I do or whatever. It is one of the most amazing experiences that you can ever do. And I wish I could just come through the screen every time I'm trying to talk to women about it because once
Yeah.
you do it, you'll be screaming it from the rooftops. But getting women to say yes to that is so hard. And we women, we need to say yes to that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you say that, like, I think about my mom, and she's been a big inspiration for me throughout my life, but, she was really everything to everyone except for herself, and she did so much. She worked an exec job in corporate America. She was always there as, like, PTA, ready for a bake sale. She did all the things she needed to do, but there was never a time where I actually thought she chose herself first, and I really feel like in order to be the best self, like, you need to choose yourself, right? And so, and I've had to learn that over time too. Like, there's a lot of undertones of like selfishness, especially if you do that in the Asian culture. As a mom, you feel mom guilt. Like, how do you make the time for it? And like, I witnessed that with my mom, and I mean, she did end up getting sick, and I don't think that's the one reason, but not choosing yourself and choosing your own like priorities is a big factor in like your own physical security.
Absolutely, 100%. And I believe too, like that we have to take part in our own sickness. I know that I was like my eating disorder, I hated myself. Like big part of the reason why I always was sick and my back was always hurt, my stomach was always hurt is because I think dis-ease is dis-ease. And I think that we as a culture, as women, have to take part responsibility for our health and not only just like our physical, like eat right, work out, but prioritizing ourselves, our mental health, like being around women you want to be like. I mean, I'm assuming you probably feel very similar that like if you want to be like someone, then you better figure out who you're surrounding yourself with and taking the time to get in that room, like you're never going to regret it. And I mean, you're a mom of a little girl. I know that you would want her to prioritize herself. And so the best way to show that that's what you want for your children is to show them to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and so it's like, how do you be the best model for them in the doing of it? And so, and really, like, I didn't in the last year and a half, like, my kids haven't really seen me work, so to speak, right? And so that was a weird feeling because I know I worked so damn hard, but they weren't there to see it. So I'm like, well, damn, they need to see me do something so that they know that you need to actually put in and you'll get out what you really put into something.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say to those people who are kind of in the stage in which that you were in a few years ago when you were starting Health Aid, when you were starting this business, when you were kind of on your way up? You kind of just said you're like, yeah, we started at farmers markets and then we grew and scaled to 50,000. But like, we know there's a big part in the middle of that. So, like, what do you think are like the main keys that you and your co-founders had that really made you guys successful? What are those like 2 to 3 things that you really feel like those were kind of like our superpowers in that time?
Yeah. So, from a business level, like me and my co-founders, I feel like we were maniacal, like executors. Like, ideas are only so good, right? But it's like, how do you actually get it done and push it forward? And if you're not gonna, get in through one door, you gotta like find the window, right? So it's like how to actually get it done. So we were just maniacal in that way, probably to our own physical detriment, but that's probably one of the bigger things. Two is, we couldn't have done it by ourselves. Like, we needed a team. And like when I see brands right now and founders, like, I get it. Like, you can't afford a person, but then you're stuck doing all the things. How are you going to grow your business? But once we hired the right people and like getting the right people in the right seats, our our business really, really started to take off in all the right ways. Just because like it's just three of us who had no knowledge of the beverage world. What we had in gumption, like we needed also in subject matter expertise. So people that actually scale the business for us. So we couldn't get to 300 to 30,000 doors without that type of expertise. And then lastly, you know, you do need like once you have this team, it's like this strong foundation of just what your values are, what your culture is, like just noting them and not like the fluffy corporate words. I'm like on the real, like what is it, right? Like in real layman's terms. And so like that is just like what I think is so critical to build a house upon. And like if you're building a business and the foundation isn't strong, how will you grow from there? So that's like the three things in the business side. On the personal level, like I wish I found a community earlier for myself. Just I remember it was like 2018. I kind of felt like I was coming up from there. Like we hired a couple people and I needed people around me to make me feel sane. And I wish I had that earlier. So, anyone listening that is in that earlier emerging stage, like make sure you find a mastermind. Make sure you find people who you can really turn to that's your own unofficial board of directors because it just helps you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very thankful. I mean, over the years, I've had a coach that just everything personal, professional, and I feel very thankful that I get to be that sounding board for so many people because it's really just a lonely road. Doesn't matter, how big you're trying to grow. Most of my clients are, single millions, not multiple hundreds of millions, but it's literally like the one person for you because you become the one person for every other person. And it is hard. It is just hard, personal and professional. It's just hard. One thing that you said right there. So number one, get it done. So that's what Vanessa said. If just you are a person who figures it out. And one of my absolute favorite quotes of all time is, "I will always find a way to yes." So that's kind of very similar. Is just to the get it done. Number two is hiring the team, putting in the right people. The third thing that you said is the values and the culture. And you talked not about the fluff, but can you give us an example of what you mean, like an actual tangible, like not the fluff of like this is our core values, but like how did you actually implement that like on a daily? Like was there something that like kind of came up or is there like something that you can really give us an example? Because I think sometimes it's helpful to have tangibles.
Yeah. So, for example, our values at the time were goal. The acronym was goal. So, grit, optimism, authenticity, and leadership. So, like, what does that mean, right? Like, when I interviewed someone, I was like, I think they're optimistic, but like that wasn't it, right? Like, how do you get a real filter for that? So, we started doing culture interviews, and so our chief of HR would do culture interviews, and it wasn't asking like, hey, are you gritty or are you optimistic? It was like, tell me the worst day at work. What was it like? What did you think? What was your mindset? How did you solve it? And you really get a sense for their problem solving, but also like their ability to think through the solutions and like get it to yes or get like see through the shit basically. Um Gritty, like, for example, we would talk about, like, let's just say you had a 50K budget and it got cut to 20K. Like, what do you do? How do you make it work? And just asking situational questions where you can see inside someone's character on how they're built, basically. There was also this tool that we used. It was called Culture Index, and it wasn't so much like values based, but it was without getting all into the details because I wouldn't be doing it justice by talking through it, but essentially was a more statistically significant Myers-Briggs test where let's say you're hiring for an accounting role, you don't necessarily want someone who's like not detail oriented, loves people, loves being out and about. Like you want someone who is very detail oriented. You want someone who is okay just being in the office at a desk at a computer. And so that test really helped us get to what people's not just skills were, but where they were going to thrive. And then if we did like, communicating often, like that was a big deal for us. And we did quarterly click, we called them click meetings. It was based off like that Kanye West song Click, like because in the beginning our team was, I don't know, maybe 6 people once we started hiring people. So it was our click. Eventually our click became like 200 people, but the name of the meetings just stuck as our click meetings. So we would do that. We would do all hands meetings like every month and really just communicating about our goals, making sure people were on the same page, um, all of that and more.
No, for sure. I love it. Did when you guys were coming up, did you use the book Traction at all, like the EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating Systems?
So we did as like a smaller exec team. We
Yeah,
never implemented it completely where I know we got like an implementer. We
yeah,
didn't get like the whole like we didn't have all the rocks and all those pieces.
yeah.
Um Part of me wishes we did and maybe things wouldn't have been so like run around with your head cut off like feeling. But that's one of the things I think I would do in the future with a new business.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like I have a few clients we've implemented that. My husband has a EOS implementer. One of my other clients hired the same guy. Like I'll tell you what, I feel like that is something that like if you're starting a business, even if you're just like a few people right off the bat, it's so helpful to know like the role description, know your vision, your goals, your culture, all of those things that I think unfortunately I think a lot of people just start a business. And I think the most successful people start a business because they're trying to solve a problem. They're like all of a sudden they're just like, but now all of a sudden I have a business and I did not did you ever see that meme that went around? It was so funny. It was basically like this girl who's like, "I never set out to be a girl boss. I just don't want
Oh,
this responsibility."
yeah. Which is so true because you're like crazy, but you like, how do you set yourself up to not be that?
Exactly. You have like all of this happening and all of these employees and all of this money and all of this stress and you're just like, "This was not my like this wasn't what I wanted to do."
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so true. Yes, you mentioned YPO. One of my
Yeah.
YPO friends, actually implemented traction, not just in his business, but he has like 5 kids, and so he implemented it at home. And he's like and they're all older kids, so they all kinda know what they need to do. They have like regular like, it's very funny to me, but it works.
That's so interesting. I've never heard of that before, but I'm sure it would. I mean, if you've got 5 kids and they're older and you've got everyone's roles and everyone's goals and to make it like, a well-oiled machine, I'm sure you could do it personally too, which
Yeah.
is crazy. How did y'all I'm assuming are you guys still all really close, you and your co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, I we're still best friends, they're still married. I'm going on a retreat actually with Dinah in a couple weeks. And so, yeah, I mean, we physically like if you know LA, like we live literally the two farthest points away from each other. Magnify that with LA traffic. So we don't see each other as much as we did with Health-Ade times, obviously, but we're still so close. Like we're sisters from another mister.
That's so incredible. I think that speaks volumes about you both and them as well, obviously, still being married. That's like truly incredible because I mean, it's hard to do what you guys did and grow it so successfully and all the things and now exit. Are they doing their own thing now or did they start back something?
Yeah, I think they're just like dabbling in new, starting also like they're really curious and in different skill sets. I think Dinah's trying to work on her creative side. Justin's doing all like he loves business, so he's like tinkering and all that way. So yeah, they're just exploring in their own right.
That's so exciting. So besides the retreats you mentioned in your intake form that, obviously like helping CEOs and founders, you definitely set up a way. So if anyone is interested in talking to Vanessa, we will put the link to her social media handle. And from that link, you can go and book a call with her. I saw that you have that on your LinkedIn and on your Instagram as well. But you talked about, and this kind of, do you follow Cody Sanchez by
Oh,
chance?
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she's great, right?
Yeah.
But she talks about cash flowing businesses and boring businesses. And you mentioned in your intake form that that's something that you've been kind of passionate about now. Like, you want to talk a little bit about that? I think I always find that so interesting.
Yeah, okay, so I'll say, like, contrasting the Health-Ade story, right? So Health-Ade, we bootstrapped it. Beverage in general just takes a lot of capital, like, upfront to get up and running and then scaling it. So we didn't actually make money until, like, 8 years in,
Oh,
and
say
lots
that
of
again.
yeah,
She
like,
did not make money until 8 years in. Do you know how many people quit after like 8 weeks? It is mind fucking blowing.
it
People,
is crazy. Yeah.
mind blowing.
I know. And so, like, when you think about that and just the magnitude of just not making money for 8 years, and then in order to like live, right? Like, you need to raise money on that note, right? So, you need to raise a lot of money to grow the company to get to a point of making money. So, again, I wouldn't change the path and the storyline of Health Aid, but to me, I love business and I love understanding how different companies make money in different business models. And so, this is literally the opposite, the buying small businesses and kind of like more of the blue collar businesses, if you will. And so this is so fascinating to me because it's the exact opposite story of Health Aid. And so I've been doing diligence on a lot of different businesses. So one is like a car wash, like across, like over the hill, a kids like play lab, a med spa. Like all these businesses have such interesting ways of monetizing their products, and And it's so fascinating to understand how the owners live and like have built their business. And now most of the, and Cody Sanchez talks about this a lot, like most of these businesses are first generation owners who are coming upon retirement. They don't have a succession plan in place because either their kids don't want to take it over, or their kids are just not set up to, and nor do they want it for their kids maybe, and so they need to sell it, but there's no succession plan. And so for me, I'm like, there's a ton of value to be gleaned in buying maybe a couple of similar businesses, optimizing, rolling them up, having them under a a holding company, and just thinking through like what that could mean for us. Like I'm doing diligence right now on the storage unit, and so for me, I've really been able to distill my investment criteria. And I've learned a lot from Health-Ade. I've learned a lot in this diligence process, and it's been really fun to say the least. Like it's not that it's easy at all, but this is like the fun business part. I actually think the community building is the hardest part of my like life at the moment. And so this is just like fun business models and like Excel spreadsheets to like dig through. And it gets me so pumped to think about all the ways that you can make money. And it makes me think twice about like my kids and like my value of like, well, I thought grad school was like the end all and be all of something. Like, is it? I don't know. And so it's made me really rethink a lot of that education, I guess, expectation I had.
Wow, that's like so contrasting to the way that you probably grew up and people around you like, "What? You're not gonna be like, go to school, get your MBA, become a doctor or a lawyer and all the traditional things?"
Totally. It is. I mean, like I grew up thinking I would be a doctor. I'm not, obviously. And I actually do not want my kids to become a doctor or a lawyer. I just think that the medical system is it's like a negative feedback loop. And I also worked in pharmaceutical sales before going to business school and starting Health Aid. And I was also very disillusioned by the medical system. And so it is not diet and exercise and let's really get to the root cause. It is like give you medicine, kind of like put a band-aid on it. We'll see you in like a couple of years when you have another thing, right? And so anyway, that I just don't think those are sustainable like professions if you really want to live in the future.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could go down so many rabbit holes, girl, but this
Mhm.
isn't, this isn't Joe Rogan or, all that
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
stuff. Well, I find that so interesting, and thank you for sharing that because I've always said, like, I've been a big proponent of, like, there is so many ways on this planet to make money, and, like, I feel like a lot of people have been told the story that it only goes a certain way and, like, 9 to 5, and, like, so many people are afraid to try things, oftentimes a lot of people come to me, for the confidence and the mindset to go from, like, the side hustle to make it their real hustle, and, like, I will tell you, people stop on step 1 or 2 because they're so worried. They're like, "Well, I can't do anything because I can't get health insurance," or "What am I gonna do 3 years from now when this happens?" And I always just think to myself, I'm like, if I knew what I had to do today, 7, 8 years ago, there's 0 chance in hell I would have started because it's just all too overwhelming, but you just have to take that next step, and that next step, that next step. And there's so many ways to make fucking money in this world, and it just
Totally.
totally, and it's so bonkers, like, sometimes you just go around and, like, I'm so fortunate that, like, in the golf industry, I've seen a lot of very, very wealthy people, and sometimes you just hear what they do, and you're just like, "Huh, who knew? Who
Yeah.
knew?"
Totally. I will say the biggest blockade that I had in this part of my life in trying to do diligence and say I'm going to buy a business was not actually it was my own psyche. It was
Yes.
me saying like, "Oh, I'm doing diligence on like a plumbing company, for example." Like, that's not sexy, that's not cool, that's not, like, iconic if you think about, like, a brand, right? And I go from, like, Health-Ade, which is, like, a strong brand in beverage, to buying, a plumbing business, let's say. And I remember talking to, someone that's really helping me through this process. I was like, "How do you feel about the unsexiness?" And then she's like, do you want to make money or not? Like, it's just like, why do you care? It's black and white. It's not rocket science. Like, let me ask you. And she asked me, she's like, do you make money at Health Aid? And I was actually like, this plumbing company actually made more money than Health Aid at that particular time, which is bonkers too for me to think about. And so I had to get over myself and I had to get over my like, ego and this preconceived notion of like what you think is the right thing for you based on like status or whatever.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because I just like I'm a huge, huge, huge proponent of saying like, what is the life that you want? You know, oftentimes I find I find myself on probably like I probably have like 30 clients at a time and probably like 10 a week. My job is to really help them reflect on like, is this really what you want? Like there's obviously we can like I had a client just a little while ago. She came to me. She's like, but I could do this and I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. And I was like, absolutely 100%. And that would bring in an extra, however much revenue. But weren't you just the person who told me you wanted, to be able to pick your kids up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? You know?
Totally.
And I think that sometimes, like, there's always more that we can do, and there's always things that we can do. I'm the first person to tell you, like, I'm 100% not working on Saturday and Sunday 3 weeks of a month because I want to spend that time with my husband who has a traditional job. And I play golf twice a week at 3 o'clock. So I'm not taking on any more clients. And I'm probably one of the happiest people you'll meet. But like you just have to decide what is best and right for you. And if that's owning a plumbing company that allows you to have the life that you actually want, oh my gosh, you're winning.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Like freedom is such an important value that I never thought actually was a word that you could have as like a value. But same, it's like I want to be available from like 2 onwards because I want to be there for my kids' activities. I want to be able to spend time for my Pilates class. Like I want this blended life where I feel really good and like not stuck at a meeting because I didn't set the terms for it, you know? So like to me, that's what life should be about, but not everyone is there mentally to step into that.
Yeah, and I think there's different seasons for it. Like, that season of Health Aid allowed you to have the ability to
Totally,
do this now, where you
totally.
now have the flexibility to be able to do that, and I think everyone just has to, like, really know themselves well enough to know, like, what season of life they're in, what do they value the most, and then take the hard work. Because 'cause I'm assuming you're like, this is hard, you making these choices now. Like, just as hard sometimes as, like, the grind of Health Aid.
Yeah, it is it is a hard decision, right? Like the decision that I just made about like my professional life, that was hard and heavy. Some of these like financial decisions around business, they feel hard, but I'm also choosing the life, like you said, that I want to live. And so in that way, it makes the decision a little bit easier because that helps to like that North Star helps to guide me in a lot of where I want to go with it.
Yeah, so much clarity. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy for you. It's been so nice to reconnect after so many years. So if people want to like reach out to you, follow you, you're definitely going to be doing these retreats. You guys, she's going to be doing these retreats.
I'm going to
Um,
be
yes, I'm here
yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Where should everyone follow you, find you, all of the fun things?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Vanessa Dew, Instagram, Vanessa Dew underscore. My website would be published like soon, so vanessadew.com. And so I'll be publishing a newsletter really soon. So find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. You guys, please, please, please go follow Vanessa, reach out to her. If you are in the beginning stages of building your business or, definitely a consumer packaged good or something like that, reach out to her. She is doing coaching sessions. You can find that link in her bio on LinkedIn and Instagram. Thanks, girl.
Thank Christina. So fun.